Hey there, I'm excited for you to be back here hanging out with me in the On Shift podcast. Today we have a guest that I'm excited for you to actually tune in when we have our conversation here in a moment, because she does a great job of navigating the emotions of her experience of actually almost losing her leg. With a 1% chance of actually keeping her leg, she was able to fight and do things that most people wouldn't do to be able to get back to a point of having great success, not just a little bit of success, but I'm talking great success. And really the journey you're going to enjoy, because she goes from a place of being in a high to drop into a pretty low low, and she shares all the low. And then she also shares how she got to her highs to a point where, like, it's almost like she has this crazy cool story that you're navigating aspects of this 1% chance of her leg, and then irreparable nerve damage. That's going to be a lifelong situation, but she has pain, and she talks about how to be able to give her pain purpose. You'll also hear about what's called the PACER concept. That PACER concept is a really amazing process that you can follow that'll allow you to get to a point in your life where maybe if you have things not going as great as you'd like them to, you can come out of it. Now, for me, I also know that there's a lot of thinking that goes on in our podcast. Like, I'm thinking and communicating, and one thing I want you to know about is what gives me the fuel to do so. I think there's a beautiful thing we have in our heads, which is our brains. Those brains need fuel. And I found a little while back this amazing company that's a cool product called Magic Mind. You go to magicmind.co/shift. You can actually grab some of these amazing little bottles of Magic Mind. Or if you go to magicmind.com and use the code AWSHIFT, AWWSHIFT, because, man, there's so many things that I do that I'm thinking through, wanting to be present for you in this podcast, as well as I want to be present as a husband and as a father, and I want to be able to do things to give to the world. But if I can't get my little brain to have that strong power, man, I can't actually get those things at the level that I do. So if you're a person who goes, I want to have more mental focus, I want to have a less of a dependency on caffeine, and you want to have more of an ability to create cool things in a world and then not be drained afterwards, I want you to go check out magicmind.co. Use the code AWWSHIFT. That's it. Let's get into the episode. Hey, welcome back to the On Shift podcast. You've already heard a little bit about our guest because I do a cool little intro for everybody. But I want to dive right into this conversation today, and I think it's going to be one you're going to enjoy thoroughly, because we go back, way back in the time, like a couple years. And this person's got a great soul, a great story. And so without further ado, I'm welcome to the show, Amberly Lago. How are you?
Oh my goodness. It's always so good to see you and get to talk to you. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, ditto. I appreciate you coming back on. This is you, I believe, might be the first re-guest from the new, we'll call it modification, up-leveling of the podcast. Because before it was just me, and like, I'm just here, how you guys doing? And so we've since built that up to where we actually spend time getting to dig into your background and your past and really market this thing a lot better than we did. So I'm happy to have you on as the first re-guest. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I feel so honored. And I have to say that I love your show, but I love all that you're doing with your background and, well, everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan. Big fan.
I appreciate it. Ditto too. I watch your stuff. I got a lot of people that I follow on Instagram, and so you're always popping up in my feed because I watch your stuff, and I love how you just show up in the world, joyous, happy, with well thought out messages that I know help people when those moments are necessary to be helped. So let's dig in. You know, I've asked this question before, but here's the first question. See, I'm walking around town. You live in Texas now, and I happen to be in Texas, and I sit down at a cool coffee shop, and this amazing woman sitting next to me. I don't know you. You, for some reason, decide to turn and start talking to me. In your own words, why should I listen to you?
You know, I love talking to strangers and anybody that I meet that's never been like something that, you know, I've never been shy, let's say that. I love connecting with people. It's my favorite part of my whole journey. And I would say that to talk to me, because I've been through so many different experiences, overcome a lot of challenges, and would probably, you'd be able to relate to one thing or another. You know, we just moved back here to Texas, and I just had a chance we moved in our house, and last week I finally had a chance to just sit still. And we have these little single hammocks, and I was sitting in the back with my daughter, and I just looked at our house, and I got this overwhelming feeling of gratitude, and I just started crying. I got all emotional, and I thought it's because there's this little table I have outside, and I looked at that, and I thought, I was a single mom for many years, and all I owned was that little table. And I'd moved into this little one-bedroom apartment with my daughter, and we had that table in her crib. And I built this fitness business, which took years, but I built a very successful fitness business, was sponsored by Nike, doing infomercials in Health Magazine and Shape Magazine. Okay. And then in the blink of an eye, all that disappeared when I had a horrific motorcycle accident. And we had $2.9 million worth of medical expenses, and we had a lien on our house. So as I sat there, I was like, wow. I've been able to rebuild my life, and I looked at our house and what I've been able to provide for my family. And I was like, there are so many moments when we don't understand why we're going through challenges or how we're even going to get through them. But when we do, and we get to sit still and we get to be in gratitude, it's like, wow, it's just proof that transformation can happen, that we can overcome some things that we think of as like they may be a genuine catastrophe, but we can reinvent ourselves, and life can get even better.
I like it. And if you stop and smell the roses, sometimes you realize they smell amazing. But if you don't, it's difficult. But I do get that whole, life can go sideways. When it does, sometimes people stay sideways. But there's a lot of people who, have gone through these journeys and they get back on a better track, I think, in the long term, which is what you've done in your life. And so if you don't mind, you kind of alluded to it, this horrible, motorcycle accident. This is, I think, a very, we'll call it awe shift moment for you. And I'd love for you to kind of share it in a moment where people can grasp the emotion of what took place, so they can get where you were, because I think knowing where you were is going to be powerful to understand, to see the path to where you are.
Yeah, well, I was probably the healthiest place in my life, mentally, spiritually, physically, in every way. I was, that day I had ran my 11 miles in my best time with my workout partner, trained a bunch of clients. I had a successful fitness career doing fitness videos, fitness modeling, like I said, sponsored by Nike, done a fitness video the day before, and I thought life is good. I'm married. I've got 2 kids that are healthy. Things are good. And coming home from work, driving down Ventura Boulevard, an SUV shot out of a parking lot, T-boned me, and I was thrown 30 feet. And when I was sliding across the asphalt, and when I stopped, I looked down at my leg, and it was completely broken into pieces. And what's so crazy is, I immediately had pain. Yeah. But I looked down, and I thought, one of the first things I thought was, wow, this can't be good. I might have to train clients on crutches for a while. I had no idea how drastic, this was going to completely change my life. Yeah. So luckily, I had a guy make a tourniquet around my leg right away. He saved my life, because I didn't know at the time my femoral artery was severed, and I was actually bleeding out on the street. Oh, wow. So rushed to the hospital. My organs started shutting down because I had lost so much blood. I was in so much pain that they couldn't control the pain. So they had to put me in induced coma. Yeah. And when I woke up from a coma is when I learned you have a 1% chance of saving your leg. This is basically like a war wound. There's really not much we can do for you. We're going to have to amputate. And I was like, whoa, hold up. You said there's a 1% chance. Yeah. And that was really my glimmer of hope that I held on to, that got me through 34 surgeries, months in the hospital, a lot of pain, and they saved my leg. But then I was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome, which is a nerve disease that is supposedly incurable. I've tried about every kind of treatment for it. That's one of the reasons we had, $2.9 million worth of medical expenses. And so here, Anthony, I had survived this horrific accident, made it through all these surgeries with no infection, only to be diagnosed with this nerve disease and to be told that I would never live a day without pain. And I was devastated. And that's what really took me down a dark path. And I had to really hit, I don't even like to call it rock bottom. I like to call it rock foundation, because when I started to build from that place, I had to be in acceptance for the kind of the cards I'd been dealt, and start learning and growing from there.
Yeah, that's tough, man. You're talking about an entire life, and an awareness of what your experience of life has been to that moment is now completely shattered. You're waking up to a brand new reality you've never experienced. And pretty much everything you've built up to is now gone. And so that's not the moment in time most people have hope. That's not the most time people go, 1% chance. Oh, I could do it. What do you think it was about your, I guess, moments in life leading to that point where you heard 1% and your brain goes, oh, I got a shot. Like, you remember Dumb and Dumber, the movie? She's like,
yeah. Oh, so you're saying there's a chance.
Right. So what was the thing that made your mind go like, there's a shot? Like when most people would go, get rid of it.
Well, you know what? I think that growing up an athlete and a dancer really helped me with my mindset. But I also think that, growing up, I was honestly, I was always kind of the underdog, things that sometimes you would think might, be hard. Like my brother, this sounds terrible. We've made up since, but my brother used to beat the crap out of me, and I learned to fight for myself. We didn't have much money. And so I was like, if I want something, I'm going to have to work for it. I was never the best dancer. And so I knew if I took more dance classes, I could be better. So I just knew that it doesn't, we get to define what our future looks like, and it's up to us if we want to be resilient, if we want to thrive in life, to pay really close attention to what we focus on. And my whole life have had a lot of painful experiences from the time I was little, being, sexually abused by my stepfather, after my parents got divorced and my mom got remarried. And so I learned at a young age, well, if I focus on the things that bring me joy, life tends to get better. If I focus on the results that I want instead of the results that I don't, then I'm going to do better in life. And so I think that some of the challenges that I went through helped me. I think having a really tough as nails track coach helped me. And I think having a dance teacher that was really tough on me helped me as well, all those things. And I know that, like, I thought about you the other night because I went and spoke at an event for kids who age out of foster care. Yeah. And I know how you grew up, and look at how it has developed you and what all you do. And so I think that we have this opportunity to let it build us and let it, and choose to focus on the good, or it can destroy us.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I think that kind of is the only two choices you're given, is it builds you or it bottoms you back out. And what I hear in there is two different things. On one side of the coin, I hear there was something to the struggle that was beneficial, right? There is something that we'll call it strengthened you and hardened you to where I have this painting in my office, and it says, "A smooth sea never made a skilled sailor." And there's like that aspect of difficult seas you learn how to navigate them. As you get older, you can handle stuff like this, motorcycle accident. And then I also heard people, right? People you could lean on that were good resources or support systems when it came time. So in the moment when you had this crash, I guess you had this hardened aspect. Who was the people, or who were the people that were around you to help you kind of climb out? Or were you kind of solo on your own for a little bit?
Oh man, I couldn't do it alone. I had an army of people that came to support me. First of all, my husband was my rock. He was doing everything except for paying the bills. We learned a very valuable lesson that the bank account, we had two separate bank accounts, and my bank account did not have, and we didn't have our names on each other's bank accounts. And so there I was in a coma, and he was like, I can't pay the bills because I can't access your account. So we learned something very valuable, that we're included on everything we own. We're both on the bank statements. But my husband was, I mean, we had a 2-year-old. We had a teenager and we had a 2-year-old. So he was coming to the hospital twice a day. He was coming in the morning before surgery, and he was coming in the afternoon when I was out of ICU to bring my daughter so I could see my daughter, or hopefully sometimes if my other daughter wasn't in school or doing something, both my daughters. I had, at that time, my clients showed up for me like you wouldn't believe. Like, I needed my clients more than they needed me, and they were there for me to show up for me in the hospital, bringing me food, bringing me flowers just to visit. And then I was still able to give them exercise, advice. I was still working. I was still being of service. And that really actually helped me to be able to give the nurses exercise tips. When they found out I was a trainer, they were like, so girl, what do you think I could do to, work on my booty? And so it made, to be of service, even though I was stuck in the hospital bed, even though I didn't know if tomorrow was if they were going to amputate my leg or not, if I was going to make it through surgery even. But to be of service got me out of any self-pity and gave me a purpose and allowed me to keep pushing forward.
I like that. And that's a big thing. I think the service is a huge thing. For people to show up for somebody when they are in a situation like you were in, that is 100% testament to how you showed up for them. So like I hear those things, my brain immediately goes like, good soul. Like that's the only reason people show up for you in your darkness is because you showed up in theirs. It's just the nature of humanity. We don't show up for people we don't care about in that manner. So good on you for being a good soul and building up. And I think I think some of those things do tie back to the childhood aspects. So you're in this moment, you got people, you got these things going on, but we're still in the moment of like, I'm in a hospital bed. We're now talking to a person, this very moment, who's been on national television, been on stage all over the world. You're author of a book called True Grit and Grace, the host of a Mastermind, you're a podcast. There's so many things that you do. I can't imagine that there wasn't a dark journey beyond that. I can't imagine it was like, all this happened, boom, So can you walk us through the points after the fact where possibly there's a moment you're like, this isn't going to work out?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So like I said earlier, I survived this horrific accident only to be diagnosed with this nerve disease. And I was trying every kind of treatment I had never done a drug in my life. And now all of a sudden I'm being induced with ketamine to try to reboot my nervous system. I was doing Eastern, Western medicine. At one point I was on 73 homeopathic pills and 11 different prescription medications. I was on Oxy. I was on every kind of pain pill you could imagine. I even had a spinal stimulator implanted in my back, these leads that went up into my back to try to reboot and calm the nerves. Nothing was working. And I remember I was like, I had a glass of wine. And I was like, wow, this kind of helps calm the pain, like numb it out a little bit. And it also helps me stuff down all these feelings of, I felt worthless. I felt, I hated myself, and hate's a 4-letter word in our family, but I hated myself, what I had become. I used to be so, and this sounds very shallow, but the way I used to look was how I got work. It was why people hired me to train them. It was why I got into magazines. It was why I got booked for fitness videos. And now I'm deformed and completely scarred from the hip down. I thought, I felt worthless, shame, and drinking was helping me numb that out. And that worked until it didn't. Yeah. And I realized one day how did a good girl like me end up like this? Like, I had become a full-blown alcoholic. And I had so much shame about that because I was hiding my drinking and I didn't want to live anymore, but I was just too afraid to die. And there was one night and I was just so depressed. And, this is before I was thinking, I want to have a podcast. I mean, 5 years ago, I didn't even own a computer. So really? I didn't even own a computer. And so like I decided to, after I got help and fully accepted that I had a problem, I went to my husband, who's a retired lieutenant commander. He was with this California Highway Patrol. And I was like, I think I got a problem. And he's like, oh, you don't have a problem. Anybody who is living with as much pain and gone through as much as you are gone through and going through this, they drink too, you're fine. And I'm like, I knew deep down that I was not fine and that I had a problem. And I think it's really important for us to really take a good hard look at our life and our decisions and think about, is this working for us? Like, how's that working for you? And I knew what I was doing was not working for me. And so I literally Googled recovery programs. I was like, I need help and I need to get help now. Like, my husband's embarrassed about this. And he arrests people in his eyes that have problems with drinking. So I've got to, yeah. And I was like, I need to go to a meeting when my daughter's in school and when, he's working. And so I went from sneaking my drinking to sneaking going to recovery.
Wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. And I'm telling you, going to my first meeting was scarier than any surgery that I ever went through because I had so much shame. And I'm like, why? Everybody else was there for the same reason.
Yeah.
But in the room, I heard hope. And I think I cried for the first full year, but little by little, I dove into self-development. I started going to therapy. I worked on myself, still work on myself every single day. Yeah. And once I started to heal, and at this time, I wasn't on social media. Like I said, I didn't have a computer. I had nothing. And I kept having people start to see this transformation in me and ask me to share, like, how are you getting through this? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And I decided to write my book, and I handwrote. I don't know if you know this. I handwrote probably about 90% of my whole book.
Really? How'd you
and then I bought a computer to type it up.
Gotcha. I was like a second ahead. Wow. So there's this world that we live in where everybody has a voice. And this is going to maybe be an interesting thing that someone's not going to like to hear, but I do not believe you should be telling anybody how to run a race until you've crossed the finish line. And you're a person who has clearly crossed finish lines, right? There's so many things you've navigated. And this is more of me saying, I love your humanity because the things you've gone through, man, a lot of people will get stuck at one of those, for the rest of their life, And so, but Amberly said, not me, right? These things happen, and you dove into the areas that most people know exist, but they won't go lean into. And then you did the work too, right? You did the work. And then you went the extra mile and said, I'm going to tell the world about this. I don't think people get how hard that is, right? Because talk about being ashamed to go to this meeting. Then you're going to say, hey, everybody, this is me. Here's all the dirt that I have in my life I'm going to tell you about. And I've done this too. And so, man, as a human to a human, heart to heart, big kudos, because I know there are people who are battling these things. And someone needs to hear this podcast specific because there's someone they know fighting this fight without the ability to push past, or know someone who has, like yourself. So I know you've kind of written this book and it's been the progression of your work now, but I know you actually have ways that you help people navigate their own realm of difficulty. And it could obviously be a multitude of different things. I think in the past we've talked about the pacer concept, but if you don't mind unpacking like the book, how that kind of has gone into the world and who it's serving, and then also I guess the process you share with people of how they can make these adjustments for their own lives.
Oh, well, thank you. You know what? I had no idea. Like, I wanted to write a book to give some hope and inspiration to others that might be struggling or feeling stuck or dealing with pain. Or shame, whether they've been sexually abused or they have been in a horrific accident or they've lost their careers or they've, had a lien on their house, whatever it may be. I was like, there is a way through this. And I had no idea the journey that it would take me on, and some of the messages that I get that just touch my heart, but it's mostly a call to your own resilience. And that's what I want, everyone to know, your listeners to really know, that we all have the ability to get through so many different challenges and circumstances. And I really had to dig into how I was doing it, and how that happened was, my husband looked at me and he was like, you really need to pace yourself. He was like, you are looking tired and you need, and I just kind of got, upset by that. I don't like being told to like pace myself or calm down. I'm like, it does the
Relax.
opposite.
Women love hearing that. Hey, relax a little bit.
I'm like, I don't like that. So,
Yeah.
yes, that's one I don't like either. And so I was like, I am pacing myself. In fact, these are all the things that I'm doing so I can be resilient. And so I wrote down on this notepad, like all the different things that I do to be resilient. And I wrote down pacer. First, I just wrote down the word pace, and then I had to add the last letter. So PACER stands for perspective, acceptance, community, endurance, and rest. And so perspective is something that I have to do every day, every morning, from the moment that I take my first step when I wake up out of bed. I'm immediately in pain. And if I didn't know how to shift my perspective with gratitude, I could go down that road of despair of, oh, I hurt too bad. It's just not worth it. I'm too old. Like the inner critic would just have a party. And so I have a gratitude practice,
Even
and I
now
think
you're,
it's what?
even now you're in pain. I think I just registered that. Like, so you wake up every day, even now, with pain.
Oh, I'm in pain all the time. And
Wow.
and in fact, my husband and I actually we got in a discussion, an argument the other night. And
Yeah.
we just moved. My ankle was swollen like a balloon, and he could tell I was in pain. And I think it brings up a lot of fear of me going back to the hospital, or and he's like, you have to understand, you're not like your other friends that don't live with this chronic illness. You have something that's incurable. And he was just like, I let him have it. I mean, I let him have his like talk,
Okay. Yeah.
and then
Well,
I let him have it. No, then I was like,
hey, that's how it is. I do sometimes my wife too, but I know, like, all right, it's just like it's a bouncing ball. It's gonna come back at me. But every once in a while I'll let it build up, and then all right, and then we have a little bickering match, and then it goes away.
yeah. And then, the makeup is always great, but I don't like to argue. It's not my thing, but I had to hear him out. And it worries him when he sees me in a lot of pain. And it has been, it's up and down, and I've figured out ways to manage it, a little better. But I think it brings up a lot of fear. And I tried to explain to him that what I do gives any pain that I may have purpose. Like I could sit home and put my leg up and focus on the pain, or I can get to work and make a difference in the world and pour into other people and be of service. And so I choose to do the latter. But if I did not wake up and practice gratitude every single morning, then I don't think that I would have the right mindset. And I think that the pain would probably get the best of me. And so I realized how much gratitude helped me for the first time when I was laying in the hospital bed, and I could feel myself sinking into that despair. I mean, I was just like spiraling down into, oh my gosh, what if they amputate my leg? What if my husband doesn't love me? What if I can't chase after my kids? What if I die? Like it was getting worse and worse. And I was like, wait a minute, I need to stop right now and focus on what I'm grateful for. And it was little things like I'm alive. I got a view of the, beautiful sky from the hospital bed. And so I also think it's important to, share your gratitude. So I have a group of girls, we call ourselves the God Squad, and we text each other 10 things that we're grateful for every single day. And so sometimes when we can say to ourselves, it's one thing what we're grateful for, we can write it down, it's another thing. But when we share that, and when we read what somebody else is grateful for, oh, it really shifts your perspective. The second part of PACER is acceptance. And I think that was really, really hard for me. I didn't want to accept that I had a nerve disease. When we first moved into our house in Texas, I was like, I do not want to accept that I have crappy Wi-Fi. Like, what? It was like, there's
That was
things.
out of left field. I love it.
It's like,
Let it ride.
it's the little things, but
Yeah.
I think when we can accept what's going on, we can start to take better action steps to make it right to make her life better. The C's for community. And like I said, I am so blessed to have a community of, I've had a lot of people go, well, you're lucky. You have community. And I'm like, no, your hard work puts you where your blessings can find you. And if you don't have community, you need to build one.
Yeah.
And how you do that is go be of service, go start helping people and be kind, and be appreciative. And that's how you'll start building community. The E is for endurance. That's where I think the grit comes in, the persistence. That's where, your daily habits of sticking to it, or like we say in Texas, get her done comes in. Then get her done. And then the R, which I had to add on because it was after like the 6th time in the ER one year for infections, because my leg also, because the veins and arteries have been compromised so much from being smashed. It's sometimes if I get like a little cut, it'll get an infection. And I was in the hospital 3 times and they were like, okay, what is going on? You're not taking good enough care of yourself. Like, you cannot be in the hospital again. This is not right. And I realized I wasn't resting enough. And I think that so many of us entrepreneurs, we love what we do, so we can just go and go and go. I know I love what I do and I can just push. And there's not many things I can say I'm good at, but I'm really good at the grit. I can work really hard. I had to learn to rest. I had to learn to give myself grace. And I think if we really want to be resilient, sometimes we have to strategically stop and plan times out to rest, refuel, and recover.
I agree. I think you have to. Even when I train, there's always those deload weeks or periods of time where your body at a physical level needs that. So if your body needs it, your soul needs it too. I really enjoy the pacer. I mean, to be honest, it's a concept that's like, it's simple, but I think simplicity is sometimes a necessary thing. When you make things too complicated, it's hard to follow. I do want to dive into the endurance thing because I think there is something to that. One, you were physically enduring pain every day. That for me, like my mind, I try to, like, when I hear people say things, can I feel that? And it's like, no, unless you felt that, it's hard to feel that, but that does something to you. I think in a good way, just as much as annoying, right? When you think through the things that people have in life, I am a big believer that the only way to have something of great success or great joy or greatness is because you have gone past the point where most people would stop. And that endurance thing is difficult for people, because that's why I think they feel bad, because they try something, didn't get it done, and they have to accept the fact they know they just quit too early. So what are your thoughts around helping people develop what I call the muscle of discipline or endurance?
I think that, a lot of people think, you're so motivated and you're so positive all the time. And I'm like, I'm actually not. Like, I work on it and I don't depend on motivation. I depend on my healthy habits. And so there are so many days, I don't know if you've ever done this, but I can't tell you, there are a lot of days where I could think of a million different excuses why I don't want to go to the gym, and I love to work out, but why I don't want to go to the gym. And I will actually drive to the gym and sit in my car and start scrolling through Instagram.
I've never done that.
Amberly, what are you doing? Get up and get your butt in the gym, And so I think I focus on not the actual activity of what it is that I need to get through or what's hard or what I maybe have to endure. It's how I'm going to feel after. And so even when I think that running track really helped me with that. So there were, times on the track when, man, running in 100-degree weather, when it's 100% humidity, and to the point where you were running and you would have to throw up, and my coach would be like, off the track to throw up and then keep running. Those days of getting through the hard times is what over time developed my endurance, developed my ability to finally win and then set a record for running the fastest mile in Texas. And so I focus on, okay, if I just get through this really hard day of running in this heat, then I'm going to do better running the mile at the race and I could win. I focus on going to the gym when I'm in a lot of pain. I'm like, well, I know if I go to the gym and I move however I can, all I have to do is sit on the bench maybe some days when my leg hurts too bad and do upper body. And I know that movement is going to move my mood and it's going to build my confidence. And I think it's so important to keep promises to yourself. And each time you keep a promise to yourself, you build that endurance, you build your confidence. And I think that endurance can be really, really simple. And it can start with something as easy as setting your alarm in the morning and not pushing snooze and actually getting up.
Yeah.
And, setting a small attainable goal and actually accomplishing it, or doing, being at the gym and doing 5 more pounds or 1 more rep or, 1 more exercise. And those start to help you build your endurance. But I think for me, what I do is I focus on the result and the reason why it's important to me. And then I can get through the how.
Yeah. That's smart. I think all that stuff it's really well thought out, logical steps to do things, right? Because I think if we operate off emotion, you'll find that your emotion one day doesn't feel like doing it, and so a lot of it's staying to being disciplined. And then you talk about the that pride you build. I think it's more than like keeping a promise to yourself. Yes, it's a good thing, and it does build the strength. But I think it also builds like a personal pride for who you are, and then future you, which in the moment is current you, doesn't want to let past you down. I go, man, I did this the last 5. I can't let myself down. I don't feel like doing it now, but no matter how I feel, because yesterday's Ant is expecting today's Ant to get that done. And that mentality pushes you sometimes in the right direction just to stay the course, And I think if you stay the course, good things happen. And you've obviously done this many times in your life, right? You've built this. And so not only do you have this mentality, it's in a book, right? You have this book you've written, and you have this concept. You do coach people, you guide people. This is something where I love that you don't just keep it to yourself and say, everybody watch me. You go, let me help you. At what point in time did you go, yeah, this is something I need to take to the world because I really believe that I can provide more value than just my words and my story?
Oh, you know what? I worked with people for 26 years in the fitness industry, but it was more of, working them through a process of workouts, but also actually coaching them. In fact, when I gave up fitness training, I had one client that freaked out and she's like, but you're my therapist. What am I going to do? And I'm like, no. I am not a therapist. I am not your therapist, But so I started getting tons of DMs and questions and emails a lot about, well, how did you build your social media? Like you had no social media following and now you have over 220,000 followers on Instagram. How did you write a book when you didn't have a computer? How are you getting booked on all these stages? How did you do a TED Talk? How did you start a podcast when you didn't know how to work technology? And so I started answering people one-on-one as best as I could, like on those 1-minute timed messages through DMs on Instagram and stuff. And then I started really paying attention to my audience, but also paying attention to the events that I was going to. And there were a lot of events where I was the only female speaker. And I was like, we need more females out there doing the same thing, writing books, getting on more stages. And I thought, what about if I just open my playbook, if I open my little black book of all the relationships that I've made along the way, and I help other women do the same thing as me, except for minus all the mistakes that I've made and the money that I've wasted along the way. And so that's when I started doing my mastermind, and it's actually what I'm most excited about. It's what I love the most is when you get to work with, and I prayed about it. I was like, God, bring me faith-filled, passionate, good women who want to make a difference in the world. And that's what I've got. And I love it. And I think, I've worked with some pretty big names who've launched their podcast. And I remember when I first started working with them, like, wow, so you really do tell us everything, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, I will tell you what worked, what doesn't work, because I made so many mistakes, and I still do. And I just, it's great learning opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's been a great way for me to share with people, okay, don't do this one thing, but
Yeah.
I do love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think there's something to masterminds, and people who are listening now go, "Oh, what's a mastermind?" A guy named Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, years ago had this concept where it's like bring some of the greatest minds together in an area, or just minds collectively with a similar direction of goals, and then everybody kind of interact and share and talk, and it doesn't actually detract from your success, but it adds to it. It creates momentum, and so I love the idea of the mastermind. I have a mastermind I run as well. And so it sounds like your group is women. Is it people who are speaking? Are they coaching? Like, who are the kind of women that are in the mastermind?
Yeah, at first, when I first started my mastermind a few years ago, it was men and women. And then I found that I love men, don't get me wrong. I love the fellas out there, but I really love working with women. And so it's for women, and it's for women who want to start their podcast or really increase their influence and supercharge their impact so they can make a bigger income. And it's for a lot of times, people who want to be on stages, bigger stages, and learn how to put together a talk and share their message.
I like it. It's big because I think that sometimes just having someone who's gone down the pathway, and I like that you did it in the way that was, I guess I want to say, very boots to the ground guerrilla, right? Because there's something to all the whiz bang things out in the world, but there's a certain aspect of grit and grace, right? That you've displayed in the process of doing it. Like I couldn't imagine sitting down going, I got a piece of paper and I got a pen and I'm going to write this book by hand. The thought of that makes my stomach turn because I'm like, I wouldn't sit down in a room and you crazy person, you did this. I love that. And you're like,
Oh my gosh. Well, and you know what? I had so many people saying, you write a book, like you don't have a college education. How are you going to write a book? Like,
yeah,
good luck with that. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
need to stick to fitness. You're the fitness girl. You know all about working out. Don't write a book. And then when I got a publisher, my husband was like, what? Somebody wants your book? And I'm like, yeah. And then when I got a call from NBC from the Today Show, and they wanted to have me on the day my book launched, and I got to interview with Megyn Kelly, my husband was like, they want you on the Today Show?
Yeah, right.
And I'm
Everyone's close to
like,
it. They're amazed by it. Like, what, you're that dope? Like, yes, love, I am that dope, wife of mine. Like, I'm pretty good. I know what you mean. But how do you navigate the conversations from people like you just alluded to? There are people that are sometimes maybe not the closest, but there are people that will have the opposite perspective of what we can do than we do. How do you keep pressing forward when a lot of people don't want to see you keep pressing forwards?
oh, you know what? I am just motivated when somebody tells me that it can't be done, or you'll never figure it out, or you're not good enough, because I was told that so much when I was a little girl. And I was like, really? I'm going to prove it to myself that I can. I am going to make something of myself. Watch me. I was told when I wanted to move to California and be a professional dancer. They were like, you will never make it as a dancer. You're going to be right back. You're making a big mistake. And I was like, oh, really? No, I am going to make it. I am going to be a dancer. And a month later, I was dancing with MC Hammer in a music video. And they were like, oh, see, I told you she was going to make it. I know her.
They did, huh? Yeah, that's what they do. First, they'll talk bad about you, then they'll tell people how they knew you. MC Hammer actually lives, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes from where I live here now. He's out in, I think, Tracy. I think, yeah. Yeah, MC Hammer. His son goes like Tracy High School. Not that it actually matters in any way, shape, or form, but you threw the name out there. My brain likes to grab weird things and do stuff like that. Uh,
He was so nice. And I was just like,
Good.
I am in heaven. This is like, I have made it. And I was like a backup dancer, and we shot for 23 hours straight. And I loved every minute of it. Yeah.
That's cool. I think that's what's awesome about it. Not only have you gone through the journey, you did the stuff, but you've created a cool life of awesome experiences, and that I believe is what life's about, man. It's about doing things that are out of the norm of what everybody else is doing, and thoroughly enjoying the journey of messing up and figuring it out, and then sharing it. There's something I think that's beautiful about me going through a journey that's hard for me having success, but that next level of success is having somebody else get it. Like if I can get you that info and go, yeah, Yeah, go like that. There's something that's just
Yes, it's so rewarding, isn't it? There's just nothing that makes I get so happy when I see someone who has taken the information that I've shared and like, this is how you do it. And they take the ball and they run with it and they take the action and then they achieve that success. Oh, it's so rewarding. It's so fulfilling.
yeah. Yeah, beautiful. I love it. I love it. So where can people go to listen to the podcast, get the book, work with you in your mastermind? Where's the best, I guess, hub for communication for you?
Everything's on my website at amberlylago.com. I hang out mostly on Instagram at Amberly Lago Motivation, but you can find all the links for everything right there at amberlylago.com.
Awesome. Beautiful. All right. You ready for the final question?
Yeah.
All right. And I have no idea what the first answer you said was. I didn't go re-listen to our episode, which I don't think I probably should have. But here's the question. I'm walking around town and I'm, seeing you and I go, hey, this is Amberly. And if I leave that room, here's the question somebody asked me at the coffee table one time ago. And he goes, hey, what promise did God make to the world when he created you?
Oh, did you see? I had to really listen to that again. So, what promise did God make to the world when he created you? That I would always make people feel loved, welcome, and a part of and accepted.
Love, welcome, part of. I like that. That's good. Because we're built to be in community with human beings. It's a big thing. As part of I think our souls need to have other humans. So I like that. I like that a
Yeah.
lot.
I like I really community is big, and it has really helped me. I couldn't stay sober if I didn't have community. I don't think I could stay in a positive mindset if I didn't have my God Squad Girls Club, where we text each other every day. And then I have a group of, women, we call ourselves the Legendary Ladies, and we're entrepreneurs and we get together. But it's the same as masterminding. I mean, masterminding can really move the needle, time collapse your journey. And so I know that's why so many people love your mastermind and the community that you have built. I mean, Anthony, you're amazing. Whether you are speaking to an audience on a stage or on Clubhouse or they're listening to your podcast, you're just such an amazing human. And I know your listeners love you and they know that, but it's like you are the real deal. What like you get on the podcast is what you get in real life, because I've had the opportunity to get to be on stage with you and get to see you in person. And I just appreciate you so much. And thank you for having me on your show and getting to connect with your audience.
I appreciate that. I receive that. It took me a lot of years to learn how to receive a thank you, but I do receive and appreciate that. And feeling is mutual. It was cool to see you. You were actually cool. You were like taller in person, I thought. I was like, oh. And then you're like tall and all, like you have this glow about you. So I really appreciate getting to meet you out there in North Carolina when we got to go hang out at that one event. I think it was Transform You, if that might
Transform You. Actually, I'm going to be out there again in March at Stephen's Place.
Oh, good. Enjoy it. He's had a couple good things there. Shout out to Stephen. So, hey, those of you guys tuned in, thank you for hanging out with us. If this episode in some way triggered something great for you to go do that thing. Or if somebody you know needs to go do something and you can't seem to get through to them, share this conversation so maybe Amberly can get through to him. Because, hey, sometimes you need to hear an outside voice to be able to get an inside transformation. Outside of that, man, make sure you guys do me a favor and rate and review the podcast so more people can hear it and listen to it. And go check out Amberly and all the cool things she's doing. That's it. As always, make the most of your awe shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Amberly Lago signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Awe Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.